Hey everybody, my name is Deja and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about all the books that I read in September. Honestly, September was not the best reading month for me. As you guys know, I've been in a reading slump for the past few months, and I was really hoping that since September was like the first real month of fall, that it would get me out of it. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. I read the least amount of books that I read the entire year in September, but I still read 7 books, which is decent, I think. To me, where the month really solidified itself as a pretty bad reading month is just in my rating distribution. I would say 3 of them I actively don't really like. 2 were like middle of the road but kind of forgettable, and then 2 books I actually did really enjoy. So I'm excited to still be able to talk to y'all about the books that I did enjoy, but this month was not the best reading wise. I know I started doing in my wrap-ups this year crochet, specifically crocheting my ratings blanket that I'm making to represent my entire reading year, but I won't be crocheting today because that project is kind of at an impasse, I would say, right now. I honestly have not worked on it much since my last wrap-up that I filmed, and that's because the neck color that I have to use, this is the current state of the cake. I could do another cake of this, but I don't want to waste all this yarn, and the middle of it basically came out and it's all knotted together. So every time I think about crocheting, I'm like, dang, I should work on my blanket, but this is the current state. So we're just going to kind of do like a classic wrap-up style today, and I always start off with my statistics. So in September, I read 7 books, as I said. One of those was by a BIPOC author, so I didn't really do that well with this month, but I kind of just been reading whatever, honestly. One of the books had queer representation, none of them were rereads, and none of them were DNFs. 3 of them I own on my physical TBR, and that equaled 2,138 pages. For genres, I read 1 contemporary book, 1 historical, 1 horror, 1 romance, and 3 thrillers. So you guys can see I read a lot of thrillers trying to get me out of the reading slump. And, you know, the thrillers were not my favorite this month. For format, I had 4 audiobooks, 2 ebooks, and 1 that was hybrid. I didn't read any books physically. 6 of the books were adult books, and only 1 of them was YA. I didn't read any middle grade or new adult books. For ratings, as I said, I had 2 2-stars, 1 2.5 star. Then I had 2 3.5 stars, 1 4.5, and 1 5-star. 6 of the books were novels, and 1 of them was a graphic novel. And then for author status, 1 was a debut author, 3 were new to me, and 3 were repeat authors. Starting off with my lowest rated books for the month, my first 2-star that I had was Midnight on Beacon Street by Emily Ruth Verona. I should say that I also filmed a fall reading vlog in September that will be coming out in October, so you'll be seeing it after. But the majority of the books I read this month were for that video, and this was one of the books that I read in that video. This was also read for my seasonal roulette readathon I did on my Patreon. I started the fall vlog during that readathon and then continued it afterwards, but this book was not good, okay? And I knew it because this was actually a book I heard about last year because it came out in 2024, or I should say I heard about it in 2023 because it was one of my anticipated releases. I know it was like coming out January of last year, I think, or something like that, and I didn't have a chance to get it yet, but then all the reviews that I heard were very poor for this book. They were all super negative, but I liked the sound of the premise, so I still picked it up. I think I bought it used, or I found it somewhere. Like, I didn't buy it full price because I didn't want to take that risk, but I was finally like, okay, it's kind of the time. It takes place in October. Let me pick it up and read it. And everybody was right, honestly. This book was really not good. To put it into perspective, this has a 2.85 on Goodreads. I mean, a lot of horror has really low ratings on Goodreads, but I would say still the majority of like the ones that I really like that are lower rated are still above a 3. This is a 2.85. Really not great. This one follows Amy, who is a teenager, and this takes place in the 90s in October, as I said, and she is actually a babysitter. So she is babysitting 2 children, I think like a 12 and a 6-year-old for the night, while their single mom goes out on a date, and things just start off normal. They're having like pizza, movie night, kind of like slumber party vibes, but then some unexpected visitors show up, and the little boy that's being babysat actually ends up standing in the kitchen in front of a dead body at midnight. This book sounds really good. It sounds crazy, and Amy I was really excited about because she loves horror movies, and that's talked about in the synopsis. So it even says like in the synopsis that it's like an ode to horror movies. So I was really excited to have another character. I was thinking like the main character from My Heart is a Chainsaw, which I also didn't necessarily like, but that was for completely different reasons. But she also likes horror movies and talks about them a lot, and that was one of the elements of the book that I liked. So I thought this would do something similar. It really didn't. She also has anxiety, which is supposed to be represented in the book. I didn't think it was done particularly well or bad. It was just not really present, honestly. And as I said, I thought this was going to have like 90s slasher kind of vibes, and it was honestly just boring. Like, this is truly not like a thriller or a horror. There's nothing horrifying about this book. There's nothing thrilling about this book. I think the only reason they classified it in those categories is because 1, I don't know what else you would put it in, and 2, there's a murder in it. But It's really boring. Not much happens throughout the course of the story, and it was honestly a waste of time. Like, my life was the same before and after this book. It just didn't really give anything at all. Like, this literally gave honestly nothing, and I really don't recommend you pick this up because it's actually a waste of time. Like, nothing happens. It's literally like nothing. So my second 2-star, I was just refreshing myself on the synopsis and stuff like that, and I think I might raise it. I have it now at 2, but it might go up to a 2.5 or 3 because I think that the book was okay. I just don't think it was for me. It is a historical fiction book as well, which is not really my cup of tea, but I read The Women earlier this year and I loved that book. So I was like, okay, I'm open to more historical fiction because I honestly haven't read much like pure historical fiction. I've read historical horror and I read some others, but not much like pure direct historical fiction. So this book was actually chosen for my in-person book club, which has since kind of ended, basically just kind of fizzled out. So that's why I picked it up in the first place. I would not probably have picked this up on my own. I don't even think I said the title yet, but it is There Are Rivers in the Sky. And this is a book that came out last year. I think I saw it in the Goodreads Choice Awards. We are following 3 characters in 3 different timelines in this book. We follow Arthur in 1940s London, and he is born into poverty. His family is very struggling. Like, if you think of a stereotypical, very poor working family in the city during the 1800s, that is kind of the background that he comes from. Arthur is very, very bright and smart, so he ends up getting a job at a publishing house. There's one book that actually catches his eye in particular, and it is a book on the city of Nineveh, which is an ancient city that was located in the Mesopotamian civilization, which is in the Middle East. So he begins to have an interest in this city. Then we follow a 10-year-old girl named Narin, and this one takes place in 2014 in Turkey, and she's actually been diagnosed with a rare disorder and she is probably going to pass away. But before she does, her grandmother wants to take her to this Iraqi temple to get baptized, but they are actually dealing with ISIS and the struggles of actually being able to get there. The last perspective is Zalika, which is in 2018 London, and she is a recently divorced hydrologist, so she's interested in water and water cycles and just everything about water. She ends up getting a houseboat on, I think it's called the Thames River in London, and she also decides that she's going to actually take her life in 1 month. But then a book about her homeland changes everything for her. So basically, we're just following these 3 characters and how they're all connected specifically by one drop of water and these 2 different rivers, the Thames in London and the River Tigris in Turkey/Mesopotamia. And this book honestly was fine. It was just very long and I got bored. This book I know is supposed to be interesting and shed light on other people's perspectives, but I just honestly wasn't that interested in what happened in the story. Like, I think the premise is interesting, and if it was executed differently, I would have enjoyed it more. Again, I just feel like not much happened in this story. I understand that the author had a story that they were trying to tell, but I don't think they necessarily executed that perfectly. Now, a lot of people disagree because this is a highly praised book. I personally just don't feel like I'm like, okay, like I really came away with a thematic message about this story, but that was the point. So I feel like it really focused on that, but I didn't really absorb that. And so I feel like the intent and the purpose of the story was kind of just completely missed. I think that is important to distinguish because there are books that don't have much plot and also don't really come across with much themes, but they weren't meant to. They're kind of meant to be fun, silly, goofy, whatever. Like for A Cozy Mystery, for example, I feel like this one, the intention of it was to educate, to bring perspective, to kind of create themes for people to discuss. And I feel like the book didn't successfully accomplish that because I didn't really get much of that. Like it does have important topics about where you're from and ISIS and just poverty in general, but I don't think it necessarily touched on those topics in the full extent of the way that I wanted it to be touched on. And it doesn't have to be overt in your face or anything like that. I just feel like we just followed these characters and that's it, but they didn't even really do that much. And I just feel like I didn't get really attached to any of the characters either because it was so split up between the 3 of them. I did have a preference for 2 of the perspectives, but I feel like they kind of fizzled out at the end. Like I was just hoping for more at the end, and I don't think it really delivered on that. So I don't know where I'm sitting with this one. I just personally didn't really like it, but I would still recommend it because I think a lot of people could still enjoy it. Moving on to my 2.5 stars, I have Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn, which I read Gone Girl by this author a year or 2 ago, and I liked it, but I felt like it was not anything special. Like it was a thriller, and I'm sure at the time that it was published, because the majority of her works are published in the early 2000s, I'm sure that it was really revolutionary and people loved it. But being someone who is more like an avid thriller reader who's read a decent bit of thrillers before picking her books up, I feel like they were just kind of basic and average and didn't do anything particularly that different. And this one was very similar to me and my feelings. This one was also published in 2006, if you were curious, and it just kind of was an average thriller to me, which is why I gave it 2.5 stars. This one follows Camille, and she recently had a stay at a mental facility, but she has gotten out and she works at a local newspaper. Her boss actually sends her on to this assignment to go back to her hometown. He knew it was her hometown, which is why he sent her to investigate the death of one girl and the missing disappearance of another girl, and if they were connected at all. So she's supposed to go back, and she has a very tense relationship with her family, particularly her mother, and her boss kind of knew that and sent her anyways because he wanted her to kind of have a chance to reconnect with her family. But Camille's mother is very high strung and kind of strange. She also hasn't really met her half sister that her mom has had since she's last been back. So she also kind of has to get to know this new half sister who's literally like a preteen teenager and is very kind of interesting as well. As I said, this one was kind of fine. I think the way that it went in the end was very predictable. I don't think it was very twisty. It didn't really keep me on the edge of my seat. It didn't really have any commentary in it very much. And I feel like it was just like an average thriller. I think, again, back in 2006 when this was published, people probably gagged and gooped by it. But I just think today we have so much, we've expanded so much from this that I feel like I can see this being like the foundation, and we built off, and I found that I like those things more than I particularly like this type of thriller, but it was a foundation for so many stories, and I see how so many stories have kind of pulled from Gillian Flynn's work. Was interested throughout the story a bit, but I think in the second half it started to die down a lot. It became very repetitive of our main character kind of investigating these different things and trying to figure out what was happening. So it got a little repetitive. In the end, it did kind of ramp up a little bit, but what happened was not surprising at all, and it didn't go that far. So I just kind of was like, yeah, like that makes sense. Like we all kind of saw this coming. And so overall, this was just a 2.5 for me. I've also read Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson this month, which was a 3.5 star for me. This was for my book club. It was actually our August pick, but I finished at the beginning of September, like on the first or second day, I think. I've read all of Holly Jackson's work to date, which I really, really enjoy her work, and this is actually her adult debut. So all of her other work has been YA, and I was really excited because I wanted to see what she could do in the adult space. This follows 27-year-old Jet, who is kind of waiting for her life to start. She feels like she hasn't really done anything, and she wants to kind of get a move on, but just hasn't yet. But on Halloween night, she's actually attacked while she's walking, which causes her to have a traumatic brain injury. When she wakes up in the hospital, they tell her that in a week's time, she is going to for sure have an aneurysm, which will for sure kill her. She's also offered a surgery, and I believe that there's a 10% chance, I want to say, of survival if she takes the surgery. But she ends up actually not wanting to get the surgery because she's like, I can either have potentially a week and investigate my own murder. Basically, that's how she sees it, is that she's been murdered because the person attacked her, which causes injury, which is going to cause her to die. Or she thinks like, oh, I can have the surgery right now. I'm probably going to die, and it'll be right now, immediate, and I won't have this next week to investigate my deaths. So she decides that she's going to go on this tyrant, really, which is an investigation to figure out who attacked her, and basically, I don't know what she planned on doing, like getting vengeance or revenge or what, or just confronting them, but she wants to find out who did this to her. There was a lot that I liked about this book. I always enjoy Holly Jackson's investigations. I think that that's what she really thrives at, is writing characters that are investigating something. It doesn't have to be a murder, but it's just something. I think that that's what really shines through in all of her books. Her one book that I rated the lowest was missing that element. I think the majority of these other books have like an amateur investigation where someone's literally going around hunting for clues, and I really, really enjoy that a lot. And I always have an enjoyable time reading Holly Jackson's work. It is so good. It's so readable. It always has me intrigued and hooked, and I love her writing. What I think really drew back for this for me was two things. So Jet was very, very, very annoying, and I understand she just found out that she's probably going to die, and that is very traumatic, but I think because of that, she kind of just, especially in the beginning, went on this rampage and harmed a whole bunch of her friends and family members that she cares about by either doing actions that she knew would harm them or by kind of hurting their feelings. And I don't think that was right, because she, one, isn't going to have to deal with the consequences of her actions because she is going to die. And I think also her friends and family want to spend time with her because she's going to pass away, and she kind of takes that away from them, which I understand it is her life too. She doesn't have to spend time with them or anything like that, but to go as far as to do almost the opposite, rubbed me the wrong way. She was very, very immature, which leads into my second point, which is that this did not feel like an adult book to me. As I said, I've read all of Holly Jackson's books, so I know how she writes, and the writing in this is almost identical to her YA books. The only thing that makes us adult at all is that Jet is 27. But honestly, Jet has the mentality of an 18-year-old to me, so I feel like this could have been YA. The only thing that I would say that makes it so it couldn't have been YA is that Jet can make her own medical decisions, but Holly Jackson still could have made her 18, and I think that would have made more sense with where she is at in her life, with just everything in the story. I think it would have made more sense to still have this YA. There's no mature content, there's no graphic content, there's nothing like that that would make it have to be an adult book. It literally is like a regular YA book that she's written, except just with a character that still behaves and acts like her other characters and still immaturely, and honestly more immature than even her YA characters. And okay, so she's 27. That's literally it. So I feel like that was a big letdown for me, because I was like, okay, this is going to be her adult debut. We're going to do something different. And it honestly wasn't that different from her YA books. I think that if this wasn't an adult debut, I would have probably given this 4 stars, because Jet still did annoy me regardless. I still did not like her, but I think I would have given her even more grace if she was younger, and I think I would have just found her less annoying overall, and her immaturity would have been explained more and just everything like that. So I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars because I liked a lot of it, but there were just a couple things that really, really bugged me. My other 3.5 star was another thriller, and that was Grey After Dark. This one I was really excited about because I just recently heard about it, and I was like, a thriller that I've never heard about that people are hyping up, and it has a pretty high rating on Goodreads. I was really excited for this one, and it was slightly a letdown. It was not as good as I wanted it to be, but it was still a good thriller, and I definitely recommend it for sure. We're following a woman who wants to be an Olympic athlete and has been training for this, but ends up getting an injury. So she decides while she rests and recovers and everything like that and kind of gets back into shape, she is going to work, I believe it's like at a camp or a cabin or something like that, some sort of like place where people go to visit and it's out in the middle of the woods, that type of thing. So she one day is on a run because she's training, obviously, to get back in shape. And while she's swimming, 2 men basically kidnap her and take her for themselves out into the middle of the woods. They decide that they're gonna like leave evidence to make it look like that she was attacked by an animal. So that's what everybody assumes at first, and so now she's out in the middle of the woods. Not many people are looking for her except for her best friend, who was actually her partner for the Olympics. He actually flew to her location and has been searching through the woods trying to find her, but nobody can find her, and she's stuck with these 2 men. This book I thought was going to go a lot more darker and kind of push the envelope more than I thought, and I think I'm just kind of desensitized because I read a lot of horror. I've read books like Pretty Girls, which is a thriller that's super dark, and so I thought that this book was kind of going to go really, really dark. The plot in itself is kind of dark from what I described to you. Literally, a woman's getting kidnapped, but I feel like, honestly, for me, not that much happened on page that was really crazy. There was some stuff that I was like, dang, but it didn't really like go as far as I wanted it to necessarily. The writing was pretty mid. It was just like average writing. It didn't stand out as good or bad. It was readable, but it wasn't anything really amazing. But overall, this was just a very fun, readable thriller that I had a really good time with. I enjoyed it a lot. My 4.5 star was If It Makes You Happy by Julie Olivia. I was really simultaneously excited and nervous for this book. I've been looking for very fall books. Fall is obviously my favorite season, just like the majority of people. So I want some fall reads, and I don't own that many like really fall books. I own like horror, thriller, fantasy that you can read in the fall, but I wanted a few like really autumnal books to read this fall. And this was one of the books that I saw. It was indie published, and then it was getting republished at the beginning of October. And then it got traditionally republished at the beginning of September. So the audiobook came out, and I was like, okay, let me just pick it up on audio. I was kind of nervous for a couple reasons. One, this is like a seasonal romance. We all know like the Christmas romances, stuff like that. None of those romances tend to actually be good. Like, they're for the seasonal vibes, but like the actual book and the romance, I don't think is good, and it's honestly forgettable. They really don't stick in my brain at all. So I thought it was going to be kind of like a throwaway book where I'm not attached to the romance, because that happens a lot in white romance books especially. This one was also compared to Gilmore Girls, which I was nervous that it might be like a direct replica of that and like lean too much into that, which made me nervous a little bit. And then also, like, when people described this book, it sounded really good. I was excited. But then when I actually read the synopsis for myself, the wording and the language in the actual synopsis, I was not the biggest fan of. So all those 3 things made me nervous for the book, but I was just so excited because I wanted to read a fall romance, and I love Gilmore Girls, so I was kind of hoping for those vibes. And this book absolutely did deliver. One other thing that also made me nervous is when I actually got the audiobook, I saw that it was 14 hours, and then I looked at the physical page count, and it was a 500-page romance. No romance usually needs to be that long, so I was like, what's in this book to make it this long. In this book, we follow our main character, and she is in her 30s. She's recently divorced, and her mom actually just passed away. And her mom actually started up this B&B in this small little town in Vermont that was like her dream. So she ends up taking it over in the interim, basically, I think from the beginning of September or October to December. So right in the fall months, she's taken over this B&B and running it since her mom passed away. And she has this really attractive neighbor who is a baker, and he's a single dad to 2 girls. They end up becoming friends and actually helping each other out. But of course, feelings start to develop and everything turns into more. This one I really liked. I loved everything about it. I loved the setting. It was so fall autumnal. I loved the B&B and like the elements of running that. We also get the male character's perspective, Cliff. So we also see him running his bakery a little bit and being a parent, and also seeing how our female main character gets involved into the lives of his children. I really liked that. I love the small town vibes, and it definitely did give Gilmore Girls, just like with a different plot, but it had a very similar setting, which I really enjoyed, because I feel like that's really what you want from Gilmore Girls, is that vibe and that setting, which this book delivered on, but had a completely different plot and completely different characters. There's also a dog in this. It was just so wholesome. The writing was really good. I felt for the romance. I liked the characters. There was truly nothing in this book that I didn't like, and it was so good. I really, really, really recommend it for fall. This was such a good romance on top of being a really good seasonal book, which is hard to find. I think it's so hard to find. As I said, most seasonal type books that advertise themselves as being like a Christmas romance or a fall book or whatever, like any book that advertises itself specifically as being seasonal, I feel like never ever delivers on all the elements of the book, but this one somehow was able to do it. So I think if you're looking for a fall seasonal book that captures fall, is meant for fall, you shouldn't really read it any other season, and it's just so perfect for this time of year. This was one that you definitely need to pick up. And my last book was my 5-star, and this is my graphic novel of the month, and that is Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell. This is one that I've been meaning to read for many a falls, for years and years, and I finally got around to it on September 1st. So I was like, it's officially September 1st. I'm picking this up to really jumpstart the fall vibes. And again, this one really came through. I had such a good time reading this, and the imagery, the colors. I actually read it on my Kobo, which is actually my Kobo Claire color, which I got a few months ago. And it was one of like the first graphic novels. I think I've downloaded some and like opened them up, but this was the first graphic novel I fully read on my Kobo, which was really nice to see how like the colors were going to be. And it was super nice and just vibrant. And I loved the illustrations and the colors. It was beautiful. This one follows 2 teenagers, and one of them's actually named Deja, like me. It's spelled different, but we still have the same name. And they work at this pumpkin patch every single fall. So they only work during the fall. It's like a seasonal job. And they work at the Succotash hut together. So this is like a pumpkin patch, but it has all fall things. Like it has a corn maze, it has the pumpkin patch, it has multiple different food venues. It just has a lot going on this pumpkin patch. It is the last day of the season when this book opens up. It's October 31st, so it does take place on Halloween, and it's actually the senior year for our 2 main characters as well. So this is the last time that they will ever be working at the pumpkin patch, and our male main character has actually had a crush on this girl who also works at the pumpkin patch for years but has never talked to her. So as they're talking and reminiscing about the years that they've been here, Deja decides that she's going to help our other character find this girl and talk to her finally. So when they go to hunt her down, she's not at her typical station, and they have to go all across the pumpkin patch to try and find her and be able to get him to talk to her. This one was just honestly so fall, like the imagery is so fall, and they do so many fall things because they're literally at the pumpkin patch, like where every fall activity is, and we just see them kind of hop around across the pumpkin patch and do activities that they've never done, try foods and drinks at the pumpkin patch that they never tried before, and we see their friendship and their dynamics and their banter, and it's just so wholesome. It's so cute, and it's honestly the perfect fall read. Those 2 fall reads that I had honestly made this month worth it, even if the other reads that I had this month were not the best. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know down below what books were your favorite that you read in September. And if you made it to the end, leave the coffee emoji down below, and I will see you on the next one. Bye, everybody. I'm writing rhymes in the kitchen, soaking the moments we live in. Yeah, you got the nerve to be on me, taking your life out of IG. If you got my number, don't add me, 'cause baby, I'm